Hi there, my name is James, and welcome to today's episode. We have a gripping story for you, filled with twists and turns you won't expect. This one will keep you on the edge of your seat, so stay tuned as we dive into the shocking details. June 12th, 2023, 11:45 post-meridian. Lila Voss stands frozen in the dimly lit dining room of Alex Wetherly's mansion. A single drop of red wine clings to the rim of her glass before it falls, shattering the silence. The glass slips from her hand, crashing to the floor, fragments scattering across the marble. Across the room, Alex watches. His face is expressionless, cold and detached. His eyes, though, are sharp, focused on Lyla. Tension fills the room, thick and suffocating. Lila's heart pounds, her hands tremble. She searches Alex's eyes for warmth, but there's nothing. She wonders, for the first time, how things spiraled out of her control. The air between them feels charged, like a storm about to break. How did it come to this? Lila's voice barely rises above a whisper. There's no answer, only silence from Alex, who remains perfectly still. Her thoughts race, replaying every step that led her here, each lie, every calculated move. Now her plan is unraveling. She can feel it. But why? In the stillness of the night, the deadly game between them has only just begun. Born on October 5th, 1987, in Cranton, Illinois, Lila Voss grew up in Cranton, a small, quiet town where nothing much happened. The roads were cracked, and the houses stood weathered by years of neglect. Lila's childhood home wasn't much different. Abandoned by her mother at a young age, she was left to be raised by a distant father who barely spoke to her. She quickly learned how to rely on herself, and by the time she was a teenager, she had already developed a sharp mind and even sharper instincts. In her early years, Lyla was known for her charm. She was the girl who could get what she wanted with just a smile, and she learned to use it to her advantage. But beneath that charm was something darker, a need for control, for power. As she grew older, that need became more apparent. By the time Lyla turned 25, she had left Cranton behind, moving to bigger cities where she could hide in plain sight. The simple girl from a broken town was gone, replaced by a woman who knew how to manipulate anyone in her path. Wealthy men became her targets, and she used her beauty and wit to pull them into her world. Through lies and carefully crafted personas, Lyla drained her victims of their money. She left no trace behind, always moving on before anyone could connect the dots. Her ability to deceive made her dangerous. She didn't just take their money, she took their trust, leaving them ruined and broken. Cranton was nothing more than a memory now, a place she had long escaped. Her new life was all about luxury, wealth, and power. Lyla had perfected the art of seduction, and with it, she built a life far from the small-town girl she once was. Lila's first big target was Gregory Summers, a 52-year-old hotel magnate. Gregory was a man of wealth and status, but beneath his polished exterior was someone who craved affection. Lyla spotted him at a charity gala, the perfect hunting ground for someone like her. She approached him, flashing her signature smile. Gregory, captivated by her beauty and charm, fell right into her trap. Within weeks, Lyla had woven herself into Gregory's life. She was everything he thought he wanted: beautiful, intelligent, and seemingly genuine. She made him feel special, like he was the center of her world. But for Lyla, Gregory was nothing more than a stepping stone. By March, she convinced him to invest in a series of business ventures, promising high returns. Trusting her completely, Gregory handed over millions without hesitation. Lyla siphoned off the money, moving it through hidden accounts. By May, the walls were closing in on Gregory. His businesses were failing, and his financial ruin became apparent. But Lyla had already vanished, leaving nothing behind but a cryptic note. Some games aren't meant to be won. Gregory was left devastated, not just financially but emotionally. He never saw her again. Lyla, however, had already moved on to her next target, In May 2023, in Manhattan, Alex Wetherly wasn't like Lila's usual victims. He was younger, only 30 years old, and came from one of the wealthiest families in New York. The Wetherly family had built a real estate empire, and Alex was the quiet, reserved heir to the fortune. He was brilliant but socially awkward, a man who preferred books over parties and privacy over attention. To Lyla, he seemed like the perfect mark, rich, vulnerable, and easily manipulated. They met at a high-profile charity event in Manhattan. Alex had been dragged there by family obligations, clearly out of place among the social elite. Lyla noticed him immediately, sensing his discomfort. She made her move, introducing herself with the same confidence that had fooled so many before him. Alex was different, though. He wasn't as immediately captivated as her other targets, but he was curious. Lyla played her part well, making him feel at ease, slowly pulling him into her world. She painted herself as someone who understood him, who could offer him excitement in a life that often felt mundane. Within weeks, Lyla had ingrained herself into Alex's life. She charmed his friends, got close to his business partners, and even visited his family's estate. To the outside world, she was his girlfriend, but to Lyla, Alex was just another target. Yet, there was something about Alex that unsettled her. He didn't fall into line as easily as her previous victims. He was quiet, but observant, never fully giving her control. At times, it felt like he was playing along with her game, but Lyla couldn't shake the feeling that he was holding something back. Still, she pressed on, determined to secure her next fortune. What she didn't know was that Alex had secrets of his own. In June 2023, in the Hamptons, Lyla thought she had Alex exactly where she wanted him. But as the weeks passed, she started noticing small things that made her uneasy. Alex wasn't like her other victims. He wasn't as easy to manipulate, and he didn't hand over control the way Gregory had. There was always a part of him that stayed guarded, watching her closely, though he never said much. Lyla tried her usual tactics: flattery, seduction, promises of excitement. But Alex's responses were measured, his calm demeanor never faltering. He would smile, listen, and occasionally ask probing questions. It felt like he was waiting for something, and that made Lyla nervous. In late June, Lyla decided to push harder. She hinted at needing financial help for a business opportunity, the same line she had used before. But Alex didn't take the bait. Instead, he surprised her with a casual remark that sent chills down her spine. "I know who you are, Lyla." She froze. "What do you mean?" Alex's smile was calm, but his eyes were piercing. "You think I didn't know about Gregory Summers or the others?" His voice was soft but unnerving. "You've been playing your game, but I've been watching." Lila's mind raced, trying to figure out how much he knew and how long he had known. This was a shift she hadn't anticipated. For the first time in years, she felt vulnerable. Alex wasn't her prey. He was playing his own game, and she had underestimated him. Now Lyla was caught in a dangerous psychological battle. Alex didn't seem to want money. He was after something else, something darker. And the more she tried to gain control, the more she felt it slipping away. The power dynamic had shifted, and Lyla wasn't sure if she could still win this one. On June 12th, 2023, at 1 o'clock ante-meridian, in Alex's mansion, Hamptons. The night was eerily quiet as Lyla stood in Alex's mansion. The tension between them had been building for days, but tonight, everything felt different. She had come here to secure control, to make sure Alex fell in line with her plans. But something about Alex's cold, calculated demeanor put her on edge. As they sat across from each other, Alex seemed unnervingly calm. His words from earlier in the week still haunted her. He knew who she was, and she didn't know how much he had uncovered. The room was dimly lit. The shadows cast by the flickering candlelight made everything feel more dangerous. Lyla could feel her pulse racing, but she wouldn't let him see her fear. "So, what's the plan, Lyla?" Alex asked, his voice smooth, devoid of emotion. "More lies? More games?" Lyla forced a smile. I don't know what you mean, Alex. We've been good together, haven't we? He leaned forward, his gaze sharp. Stop pretending. I know about Gregory Summers. I know about everything. You've been playing me, just like you played all the others. Her heart skipped a beat, but she tried to keep her composure. You're wrong, Alex. Am I? He stood up slowly, his towering figure casting a shadow over her. I know you've been planning to rob me blind, but the problem is, Lyla, I've been planning too. The shift in tone was palpable. Lila's mind raced, trying to figure out her next move. She had to act fast. Reaching for her handbag, her fingers brushed against the cold metal of a hidden knife. If she couldn't manipulate Alex, she had another way out. She stood up, her heart pounding in her chest, but Alex's eyes never left her. What are you going to do, Lyla? His voice was low, almost daring her to act. You think you're going to kill me? Without another word, Lyla lunged at him, the knife aimed for his chest. But Alex was ready. He grabbed her wrist mid-air, twisting it violently until she cried out in pain, dropping the knife. It clattered to the floor, the sharp sound echoing through the room. Alex didn't let go. He tightened his grip on her wrist, pushing her back until she was pinned against the wall. Lyla struggled, her eyes wide with panic. She had always been in control, always the one who pulled the strings. But now, she was trapped. I've been waiting for this moment, Alex whispered, his face inches from hers. You really thought you could outsmart me? With a swift motion, he let her go, and she stumbled to the ground. Desperation filled her eyes as she looked up at him. She had to do something, anything, to turn the tide in her favor. But before she could react, Alex reached down, grabbing the knife she had dropped. His grip was steady, his expression emotionless. Please, Lyla whispered, backing away. We can still make this work. Alex tilted his head, considering her words for a brief moment before shaking his head. No, Lyla, this game is over. He raised the knife, and for a split second Lyla thought he was going to strike, but instead he tossed it aside, letting it slide across the floor. You're not worth it. Her relief was short-lived. Alex walked over to a small drawer, pulled out a set of documents, and tossed them at her feet. These are all the records of your crimes. Every scam, every theft, every lie. I've been collecting them since the day I met you. Lyla stared at the papers, her hands trembling. It was over. Alex had beaten her at her own game. But she wasn't just afraid of prison. She was terrified of Alex. In that moment, she realized that Alex wasn't the naive heir she had thought. He was darker, more dangerous than any of her other victims, and now she was at his mercy. On June 13th, 2023, at 9 o'clock ante-meridian in Alex's mansion, Hamptons, the next morning, police arrived at Alex Wetherly's mansion in response to a 911 call. Alex had reported a break-in and claimed self-defense, his voice calm and collected on the phone. When officers entered the mansion, they found a chaotic scene: broken glass, blood splatters, and overturned furniture. But most striking of all was Lila Voss, huddled in a corner, her face pale and her wrists bruised. Lyla tried to explain, but her words came out fragmented, panicked. She said Alex had planned it all, that he knew everything about her, but it was too late. The evidence told a different story. Investigators found the knife on the floor and the documents Alex had prepared, carefully catalogued proof of Lila's past crimes. It was enough to make her look like the villain, just as Alex had intended. Forensic analysis showed a struggle, but Alex's injuries were minimal. The bruises on Lila's wrists, however, painted her as the aggressor. The police, convinced by the evidence, accepted Alex's version of events. He had framed her perfectly. As Lyla was led away in handcuffs, Alex stood by, expressionless. His plan had worked. No one would ever suspect him of being anything more than a victim. In October 2023, in New York City courthouse, Lila Voss's trial quickly became a media sensation. Headlines painted her as a manipulative con artist who had preyed on wealthy men, finally getting caught in the act. Reporters referred to her as the succubus of Manhattan, a woman who used beauty and deception to ruin lives. Her story gripped the public, and every courtroom appearance was followed by a swarm of cameras and reporters, eager to catch a glimpse of the infamous criminal. Inside the courtroom, the prosecution laid out a damning case. The evidence Alex had provided, the financial records, the list of victims, and the documentation of her fraudulent schemes, painted Lyla as a heartless sociopath. Every detail of her past was exposed, and with each revelation, the jury's sympathy for her vanished. Lyla sat quietly, knowing the game was over. Her defense team tried to argue that she was manipulated, claiming Alex had known about her crimes all along and had used her in his own twisted way. But Alex played the part of the innocent, soft-spoken victim perfectly. He testified calmly, recounting the night of the attack and how he had acted in self-defense when Lyla tried to kill him. The media portrayed Alex as the tragic figure, a young, wealthy man who had fallen victim to a dangerous seductress. Public opinion quickly turned against Lyla, who now faced not only charges of attempted murder, but also the full weight of her past financial crimes. Her image as a femme fatale was cemented in the minds of the public. In the end, the jury deliberated for less than a day. Lyla was found guilty on all charges: attempted murder, fraud, and conspiracy. The judge handed down a 25-year sentence, with no possibility of parole for at least 20 years. As Lyla was led out of the courtroom in shackles, Alex watched, his face calm and composed. He had won, and no one suspected his darker motives. In October 2023, outside the courthouse in New York City, Lila Voss was taken away, her face expressionless. The media swarmed Alex Wetherly outside the courthouse. He gave a few polite words to the press, expressing relief that the ordeal was over. "Justice was served today," he said softly, maintaining the calm, collected demeanor that had won over the jury and the public. Cameras flashed, capturing his every move. But behind those calm eyes, Alex was already thinking about his next steps. Lyla had been his biggest challenge, but he had outplayed her from the start. She was smart, yes, but Alex was smarter. He had spent months preparing for this moment, calculating every move to ensure he remained untouchable. Lyla would serve her time in prison, and her name would be forgotten, just another criminal who had taken a fall. But Alex? He would continue his life as the quiet, unassuming heir to a fortune, his dark secrets safely hidden away. The final chapter of Lila Voss's story had been written, but for Alex, the game was far from over. As he walked away from the courthouse, the crowd still buzzing around him, a faint smile crossed his lips. He had won, and no one would ever know the truth. As Alex stepped into the waiting car, his mind was already moving to the future. Lyla had been a formidable opponent, but there would be others. He thrived in the shadows, playing his games unnoticed. The world saw him as the victim, but behind that facade was someone much more dangerous. The story of Lila Voss had ended, but for Alex Wetherly, the game would continue. And next time, his prey wouldn't see him coming. With every victory, his power grew. Quiet, hidden, and lethal. Who would be his next target? And that's the shocking story of Lila Voss and Alex Wetherly. But here's the question. Do you think Alex was truly the victim, or was he playing a much darker game all along? Let us know what you think in the comments below. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe for more stories that will keep you on the edge of your seat. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.